I love this book so much. A little bit weird, right? It's like, you couldn't even tell me what her last name is, by the way. And oh, it destroyed me. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is gonna be so much fun. For me, maybe not so much for you guys because you have to listen to me talk for way too long. But I love videos like this because I can just sit down and talk and yap your ear off. And I feel like it gives me an excuse to do that. So in today's video, I have a major reading wrap up to give. I have fallen behind on my reading wrap ups. I think, when was the last one I posted? Because that was far too long ago. And obviously the past few months I haven't done reading wrap ups. So now I have just an accumulation of books that I need to talk about with you guys. Because I feel like it's not fair to not go over them. So that's what we're doing in today's video. I have a total of 13 books to talk about, which is absolutely insane. For my total statistics, because I just love doing this, I have 6 fiction books, I have 3 romance books that I'm going over, I also have 3 fantasy books that I'm going over, I have 1 thriller / mystery book, and I believe that's all. Without further ado, let's get into talking about some books. So the way that this is gonna work for me is I'm just gonna go in order. I think that these are in order of like when I read them. So our first book, I feel like you're gonna have a guttural reaction to. So am I. Okay, so we're in this together. Don't worry, we are trudging through this together. First book that I want to talk about, A Little Life. I feel like I don't need to tell you too much about this book because you already know how I feel. This book is a 5 stars. I gave this book a 5 stars because it just genuinely changed my life. Basically a book that follows these 4 friends who like live in New York City, but they all were college friends before that. And you're basically just following the way their lives kind of shift and change over time and how their relationship and like friendship and everything kind of weaves in and out and all of those sort of things. So it's literally just like, this is giving the human experience. That's truly what this book is about. It sounds like it's not that interesting because especially this being a very long book. Okay, I also feel like everyone who was like crying over this book, every time I saw that before I read this book, I was like, y'all are being so dramatic. And then I read this, and I think I read this in a vlog with you guys. I sit down to film an update and I already get just a rush of sadness filling my body right now. Oh guys, I'm literally gonna cry again. This book took up like 20 minutes of a 30-minute vlog for me. That's how much I love this book, and I cried my eyes out so many different times. Our 4 friends that we're following is Jude, Willem, Malcolm, and JB. Oh my god, I just like, my heart aches for every single one of them, but especially Jude. I feel like Jude, I want to throw up every time I think about his storyline, and I just think about him in general. I want to like throw up everywhere. I don't know how else to say it because I don't want to spoil it, but wow, 5 stars to this book. This book is 800 pages long. It's a very, very big commitment, but I feel like if everyone in my life could read this book, everything would be right in the world. I could go through this book and I literally could make like an hour-long video of me talking about this book, but I don't think that's necessary. I think the only necessary thing that I have to say is I think everyone should go read this book. So good. It is so good. Okay guys, our next book is also one that I really, really adored, and this is Beartown by Fredrik Backman. I feel like it goes without saying I love Fredrik Backman's writing. It's to the point where like I've scoured the internet and watched so many interviews of Fredrik Backman. I'm so obsessed with the way his writing style is because I feel like it gets really, really deep, but then when it gets deep and you're like on the verge of tears, then he kind of reels it back in and kind of like adds a little bit of a humor aspect to it. I truly just love his writing so much. So Beartown was no different. Let me look at what I gave this book because I don't remember what I rated it. I did give this a 5 stars. I loved this book so much. It was so different than what I thought it would be. Everyone who's talked about this book kind of describes it just as like, there's these few main characters you're following, these people who live in a small hockey town. But the way I would describe it, following the story of a young girl who goes through a very, very, very traumatic event, and it's kind of following like the impacts of that on her life, and also not just on her life but on the whole town's life. You're following her family, you're following other people's families in the town, and everyone's lives are intertwined in this small town. So it's an interesting book, but it's also so painful. I feel like the way Fredrik Backman's writing is too, it's like you get invested very easily. I would look up trigger warnings for this book before you read it. Don't go into it being like, oh, this is a fun, cute little small town. No, so look up trigger warnings before you go into this book. Honestly, look up trigger warnings for any of the books that I talk about in today's video because you guys will realize a theme. So good. Like truly, I don't think there's a singular complaint that I have about this book, which is surprising because the main thing I do in my life is complain. So I'm very surprised I don't have a complaint about this book. Guys, the next book, it's just as painful as the first two, and I apologize in advance. I don't know what like went on during April and May, but those 2 months of my life of this year, I don't know what I was going through, but I was going through something and I just needed a book to make me feel something. The next one that I read, The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. This book made me feel something. This is a historical fiction book, which I don't think I've read a historical fiction book before this one, but I'm realizing the more and more historical fiction books that I read, I think this might be one of my top genres, which is really odd and like out of place. It just doesn't seem like it would fit with me, but somehow it does. Love this book so much. I gave this book a 4 stars. It follows these 2 sisters during this World War, and they both kind of have these separate paths. One of the sisters is a mom, and she kind of decides to hunker down during the war, and then the other sister is younger and a little bit more naive, I guess you would put it. When you're in her perspective, you don't really view her as naive, but like that's the common consensus of other people. They think she's naive. She decides to like go into the forefront of the war. You're kind of following like both sides of the war, which I found really, really interesting, and I love the fact that you're following a woman's perspective. It's just what we needed. Truly, I think I would be so annoyed if this was a man's perspective. I don't really want to hear about the war through a man's perspective. I'm sorry. Is that wrong to say? Like, I want to know what the women went through too, and that's what Kristen Hanna like excels at. The only reason I gave this a 4 stars, and this is gonna sound really bad, I'm prefacing this and telling you, like, I know this sounds bad, you don't have to tell me, but when we would talk about the war and things going on within the war, I was like, I don't care. It's not that I don't care. It wasn't grabbing my attention. It was more so like I was so uncomfortable reading about the events of the war that I was kind of like, okay, can we just like skim the page? Like, I can't. Like, I genuinely feel like this book made me just a little bit smarter because I feel like I know random facts about the war now. I don't know when I'll use that information, but I have it stored up here. This book deserves the hype that it gets. 4 stars to The Nightingale. Let's move on to our next book, which is more fun. Okay, it's a lighter time. The next book we have is The Rom-Commers by Catherine Center. I feel like after I went through like April and May of being very heavy, deep books that like I was like, I kind of need a fun time. Let's have happiness again. Hey, can we normalize happiness and joy again, please? This was such a cute book. I feel like Catherine Center is one of those authors that I can always count on and trust. I ended up giving The Rom-Commers a 4 stars. This was such a cute book. I'm not normally a fan of sprayed edges, but because like all of these fun colors are already here, look how fun this book is. I feel like for some reason I'm realizing this now. I love reading romance books about writers. I just love it so much because I feel like it gave Catherine Center the opportunity to kind of like deep dive and like nerd out about writing like through the lens of her characters, and I loved that so much. Our 2 characters in this book is Emma and Charlie. Guys, Charlie is one of my new book boyfriends. We have a long list of them. Okay, look at my bookshelf, but Charlie is definitely like up there on the list. Like, I don't even know how else to say it. I just loved him. And Emma, I originally didn't like her like in the beginning. Her and Charlie's banter first and foremost, top tier. Genuinely made me laugh out loud, which very few books make me have like audible reactions to it. Basically because I didn't explain the actual plot of this book, I just was going on about the fact that I loved them. Obviously you're following Emma and Charlie. Now Charlie is a very popular screenwriter and Emma is a less popular screenwriter, and she gets set up to go write something with Charlie. Like they both have to collab on this project, and the project is screenwriting for a rom-com. Obviously Emma has to help Charlie write this because if he doesn't write this rom-com piece, then he can't go on to write his like post-apocalyptic screenplay. These 2 characters gave me big like Gus and January vibes. If you know, you know. Love that book. This one was 4 stars. I loved it so much. Catherine Center, just so good. Just so good. The next book I have to talk about is actually from one of my favorite authors of all time. You guys know her, you guys love her. If you're on this channel, you know who I'm talking about. Miss Ashley Poston. This is The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. This is one of her first like popular books. She had books before this one, but this is like the first one that kind of took off on Book Talk. I'll be honest, when I read this book, I gave it a 4 stars. Looking back on it, I think I'm gonna change that to a 3 stars. It just wasn't the strongest book that I've read, especially from Ashley Poston. I feel like it's horrible because 7 Year Slip by Ashley Poston, you can see it right up there. I love that book so much. I've put Ashley Poston on this like pedestal. And some of you might say, hey Bryn, that's actually a bad thing. Like, you need to go into it without these super high standards. But if I know what her writing could be, when her writing's like this, I get a little bit disappointed. This book follows our main character named Florence. It has this really big plot of grief in it because her dad died and she has to go back home for the funeral and everything like that. I feel like for a book where the character that you're grieving was alive in the beginning of the book, I just don't feel like it really hit as deep as I wanted it to. It was like it was trying to hit super deep and it it would like get right to the point of where, oh, if we took one more step, it'd be like gut-wrenching, but instead of taking one step forward, it took 2 steps back. The 7-Year Slip, like, sorry I keep talking about it, but that's genuinely one of my favorite books of all time, ever, 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 ever to exist. Knowing that Ashley Poston can talk about grief like that, I feel like her talking about grief like this just didn't work for me, honestly. The premise is basically like you're following Florence. She is our main character, but the romance that happens is between her and this editor that she meets like at her work. She works in the book industry. So she has a meeting with this editor, and then after the meeting, he dies. And then the romance in this book consists of her and this editor who is dead. It's following her and his ghost. Weird, right? There's one thing that I gotta be, it's honest. I have to be honest about my rating, and this is a 3 stars, unfortunately. Our next book I feel like is a little bit out of character for me. Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. When you look at me and you look at this book, you'd be like, these two don't coincide at all. But honestly, I picked up this book just because I was so intrigued by it. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, like, that's not a genre I like. I am down to try anything. It was actually a lot better than I thought it would be. I'll be honest, scared. Okay, my bones were quaking. Following Ophelia, and she is part of this group of witches, basically. And her mom dies, so then she basically becomes the next in line to have all of these different, like, powers that her mom had. And her younger sister runs away. This thing called Phantasma, which is like this set of games. It's basically like if the Hunger Games and Caraval had a baby. That's how I would describe it. But her younger sister runs away to Phantasma, and Ophelia, basically being the one who just inherited all this stuff and she has to take care of her sister, she now runs to Phantasma to go save her sister. It is crazy, okay? She ends up meeting a demon, a literal demon, and falls in love with him. Is it bad to say that I actually do like him? Honestly, me liking this book, I feel like was a little bit of a red flag. I'll be honest. I do feel like as much as this book was like super fun and interesting, I also feel like I was getting confused at points. The way that this world was explained was just so confusing. And I don't know if I'm just like dumb as rocks and couldn't understand it, or if it was actually just really confusing. It was like interesting, but it also didn't make much sense to me. Yeah, I don't know if I'll read the second book in the series. I don't know if I'll continue the series or not. To be decided, okay? Guys, this next book, the second you see what author it is, you're gonna know how I feel. Miss Sally Rooney herself. I love her writing so much. Now, I will say, okay, the biggest hate that Sally Rooney gets is that she doesn't use quotations. It does get annoying, but I feel like her writing just in general makes up for it. Following 4 different friends and like basically how their lives intertwine, there's like 4 different characters to it. It follows friendships, romantic relationships, life changes, trials, tribulations, all of these different things, okay? I did really like this book. I gave this book a 5 stars. One of the biggest things that I loved in this book is our 2 female main characters. They're friends, but they don't like live near each other. So pretty frequently one of the chapters would be like an email from one of them to the other one. Like a mix of drama and tea that they were spilling on like their life, but then it was also a mix of like, I actually don't know the meaning of the world. So I love this book so much. I just love Sally Rooney's writing. There was just something to say about all the characters in this book. I could go on and on about all 4 of them because they were all just fully fledged out. I feel like the summary of the book explains it better than I ever could, so let me just read this really quickly. It says, Alice, a novelist, meets Felix, who works in a warehouse, and asks him if he'd like to travel to Rome with her. In Dublin, her best friend Eileen is getting over a breakup and slips back into flirting with Simon, a man she has known since childhood. Alice, Felix, Eileen, and Simon are still young, but life is catching up with them. I absolutely loved and adored this book. It literally lives up there on my bookshelf, like displayed. Loved this book. Let's move on to the next. Okay, I feel like I'm losing steam, but I have 5 books left to get to. Okay, this next book is actually one that I mentioned earlier on in today's video, but I read Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I actually love Stephanie Garber's writing. I read her Once Upon a Broken Heart. I want to read the rest of that series so bad because I loved that book so much, but I was also told that I need to read the Caraval series first, so I kind of put a hold on the Once Upon a Broken Heart series so that I can read the Caraval series first. The way she transports you into a story is so beautifully done. I don't even feel like she's doing it. And her books just feel like a fairy tale. In the beginning of the book, did I mix up Caraval and Phantasma, or are they just that similar? Hold on. Because this one, they get a ticket to go to Caraval and it's 2 sisters, and one of the sisters gets stuck in the game also. Basically, they've been obsessed with the game of Caraval for so long, and they've been like hoping and praying that Caraval would come to their city so that they could go see the games like play out. That doesn't end up happening, but one of the sisters sends a letter off to the headmaster of Caraval. The sisters end up getting tickets to Caraval, and it's just the most magical book ever. Like, I don't know how else to explain it other than that. Okay, the next book I read is actually a book that I read on my Kindle. It's Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Abby Jimenez. Now, I feel like I have to preface this by saying that I love Abby Jimenez. This doesn't reflect how I feel about her. I'm still part of her fan club. I do think that this book felt a little bit flat for me. Really didn't grasp my attention much. I'm gonna try not to be super negative, but I did give this book a 3 stars. I honestly think now, like looking back on it, I think I'm gonna change that to a 2 stars. Don't hate me, I'm so sorry if you liked this book because this is actually her newest release. Guys, I just did not like it. These characters had so many deep things going on in their lives, but we never fully grasped that. But I also think the big pull that I have to romance books is the fact that it's cutesy and it's fun and it's light and it's happy, but it also has these undertones of like deeper things that these characters went through. It kind of just felt like these characters had these different things that they went through just to say that they went through something. Now, the way our 2 main characters meet is because Xavier is a veterinarian and Samantha finds this cat. Basically, this cat needs like a big medical surgery. It just felt like they went out on one date after they met and they were immediately like, oh, we're together. We're never leaving each other's side. You couldn't even tell me what her last name is, by the way. So that was like my first complaint about this book. I feel like I have to take deep breaths before I go on a spiel because I'm trying not to be super negative. Samantha ends up having to go back to her hometown because her mother has dementia and she has to help take care of her mother. Because Samantha had to go back to her hometown to take care of her mother, I'm kind of like, okay, like it's fine, like long distance. Like if you guys want to be together that bad, because the way they were convincing the reader of like, we have to be together for literally a lifetime, but then they started acting like long distance was this super big issue. I just thought it was a horrible book. Let's move on to the next.
Ice tea delivery.
Thank you.
I didn't know if you wanted me to wait for you. Nope.
You're gonna be waiting too long.
Are you hungry?
I got snacks in my bag.
Okay.
My mom delivered me an icy. If my tongue turns blue in this video, don't point it out. Our next book is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. I feel like every male ever gets so geeked when I'm like, I read Red Rising. Going into it, I was like, I'm not the audience for this book, but it ended up turning out really, really, really good. It reminds me of like Divergent and Hunger Games. I feel like when the setup of a book is like someone dies, that kind of sets the tone. Basically, society is split into 2 different sides. I think it's just the reds and the golds, I think is the way it's worded. And the reds are the people who work down in the mines. They don't get to live and see the literal sky. And then the elites, like the golds, they live above ground and they get to, you know, survive and live happy, free lives. Reds think that basically there isn't an outside world. Like they've heard theories about it, and the few ones who do know that exist, if you get caught on the outside world being a red, you're murdered. That's kind of like the whole extent of this book. Our main character, which is actually really interesting because I don't read a lot of books who have like a guy main character. If I'm reading a guy's perspective, trust there's a girl's perspective the next chapter. I'm not used to getting like a guy's perspective in general. He ends up kind of getting thrown into this group of people, these group of reds, who are trying to overthrow the elites. He's literally overthrowing a government. I loved this book so much. I loved the writing, and I really, really want to continue this series. And I read this book very quickly. I think it took me like 3 days to read it. So, very good book, 4 stars. Next book I read is actually by an author that I already talked about in today's video. It's Home Again by Kristen Hanna. It didn't shock me that I gave this book 4.5 stars, okay? So you're following 3 different main characters. You're following Madeline, you're following Lena, which is her daughter, and then you're following this guy named Angel. Angel is Lena's father. And it's very interesting because you're following Madeline, who's just like going through these like crazy things, trying to just keep her life afloat, like also trying to understand Lena, her teenage daughter. And then you're also following Lena, the teenage daughter, who is obviously going through a lot of growing pains. And then you're following our third character, which is Angel, who literally ditched them. So at the beginning, I was like, I actually hate Angel with every fiber of my being. The more and more you go along in this story, the more and more you're just like, oh, I feel for all of these people. Basically, the thing with Angel is that he's a very popular movie star. He ends up like having this crazy partying lifestyle, like just a really bad lifestyle. He does not treat his body right. So then he ends up needing a heart transplant, which is like something that I've never read about in a book. And it was so interesting to me. I loved the way that we deep dived all of that with Angel. The reason their lives kind of intertwine again is because Madeline is actually a doctor. She ends up being Angel's doctor. You're watching them have flashbacks of their teenage years together, and it was just so painful, like truly so painful to me. And also on top of all of this stuff going on, there's another huge thing that they're all dealing with. They all lost someone very, very close to them. Oh my god. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. It hurts. It still hurts. Kristen Hanna's writing is just so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Let's move on to our next book. Our next book is The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. Obviously, I feel like after every deep book that I read, I immediately have to dive headfirst into a romance book because I can't do depression for too long. I ended up giving The Fine Print a 4 stars. I just think it was a very, very well done romance book. Following Rowan and you're following Zara, it's a romance between them. That's what the whole book is about. Rowan actually, like, his family owns this theme park, this very popular theme park. She actually works for his company. And then one day she gets drunk and she writes a review of one of the roller coaster rides, just picking it apart at the seams. And then she gets called in for an interview to like get a better job at the company. Now, the one thing about Zara is that she's literally the polar opposite of me, so I thought that I would hate her. And then the more and more we went into the book, I was like, no, I actually am obsessed with her. And Rowan, oh my god, I hated him in the beginning. I'll be honest, because this is also an enemies to lovers between them. So yeah, that's how I felt about Rowan at the beginning. I was like, he's just this stuck-up rich guy who's like kind of rude. Then getting his perspective honestly changed that whole thought process. And yeah, I just loved it so much. I have the next 2 books in the series on my shelf, and those will be read very, very soon. Our next book is Darling Girls by Sally Hepworth. Ooh, what is there to say about this book that's good? This book fell so flat for me, and I thought that I was going to absolutely adore it. This book follows 3 sisters who all grew up in this foster home together. Their foster mother, Mrs. Fairchild, oh, actually enrages me. Truly brings out a different side of Bryn that is never brought out, and it is pure rage. Pure rage and anger. They just did not have a good childhood at all. And one day, after these 3 sisters had moved on with their lives, okay, and tried to forget everything that happened to them, they each get a call that's like, hey, a dead body showed up on your foster home's property. So then all of them are getting interviewed. It literally immediately transports them all back to their past. I felt like if we focused on that more, I would have loved this book and absolutely adored it. But because this book just mainly followed the mystery, it was just like, hey, this happened, and then we moved right past it. I also feel like I'm not a big mystery thriller girly, so I ended up giving this book a 3 stars. Okay, I'm gonna stand on that because the ending was good, but getting there was, oh, it was so annoying. Okay, everyone, to end this video, we're ending on a high note with The Midnight Library. This is the last book that I've read. Absolutely adored this book. I gave this book a 5 stars. It was so well done, and this is my first Matt Haig book. It won't be my last. It won't be my last. I loved his writing so much. I didn't expect to like it this much. You're following this character named Nora, and please, for the love of God, look up trigger warnings for this book, because Nora tries to take her own life in the beginning of this book. That's how this book starts off. And instead of going to the afterlife, she ends up in the Midnight Library. The people who run the Midnight Library, they pick these specific people who they feel like haven't done enough in their lives. So Nora gets picked for the Midnight Library, and basically every book that she picks from the Midnight Library is a new way that her life could have gone. So all of these dreams and aspirations that she has had in her life that she never actually followed through on, she gets to pick a book that's like, oh, this one, I'm in Antarctica, like studying whales or something like that. But she only gets to live them for a certain amount of time, and then she has to go back to the Midnight Library. She has to choose what life she wants to be transported into. So the way this book ends up playing out is so interesting. I also feel like it should be said, there's also an aspect of humor in this book, which I really enjoyed. I feel like when we have such a deep topic at hand, the only proper way to do it, in my opinion, is to add a little bit of humor into it so it's not super deep and it doesn't make the reader feel like crying every 2 seconds. Honestly, just watching Nora go through these lives was like funny, but then at the end of it, like each different life that she went through had a different life lesson that she learned. Oh, it destroyed me. By the end of the book, I was absolutely destroyed. I felt like I needed to be in like the fetal position crying reading this book the entire time. That's how I felt. I know that was a lot, but if you stuck around to the end, thank you for watching today's video. I love you so much. Like, I appreciate your support so much, especially watching this entire video. This was a very long one. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Check out all my socials, links in the description box down below, and I will see you guys super soon with a new video. I have been filming so much recently. I've been loving it. I've been loving every second of it. I've been filming and editing, and that's literally what my life has been consisting of. Every single Wednesday and every single Sunday, expect an upload from me. And yeah, with all that being said, I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.